radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black. Fade to Black. I'm Jimmy Church. Today is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. And tonight you've been waiting for this. It's about to happen. Our guest is Chris Bledsoe. And tonight we're going to be talking about UFO of God, his new release and best-selling book. It just came out, and everybody is commenting about how much they're enjoying the book. And I've been watching different quotes and people's favorite things, and everybody's talking about this right now. And I couldn't wait to get Chris on the show. I will say this before I bring Chris on, and he's listening right now. Chris and I talked probably 6 months ago, and about the book and things, and that we had to just push things out a little bit. I wanted Chris on the show 2 or 3 times over the last 6 months, and we just had to put things off until the release of the book. And tonight's the night. I'm very excited about this. As most of you know, Chris and I have been friends for a very long time. We've done lots of shows together, and but tonight is going to be really, really special. Also, I thought I knew Chris pretty well. But right before the show tonight, I found out something I never knew about this man. And you're going to see some of that when he comes on. Now, let's just start with this. I'm not going to do a long bio on Chris, but we all remember the shows I did with Chris about the river, his employees, of course, Chris Jr. and, family members and stuff, and what went down that night, which seemed to have a little bit of everything. We had a craft land in a field. Chris goes in one direction towards that. Chris Jr. and his contractors, his employees down by the river, they go somewhere else. There's a close encounter with an alien entity. And everything unfolded that night. It was an incredible adventure. We may touch upon some of that tonight, of course. But now the book is out. It is called UFO of God. The links are below. We have them over on our website and throughout social media. And with that, I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Chris Bledsoe. Chris, my man, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, okay. Can I start with this, Chris, a little bit? You look like you're glad to be back. Right?
I am, and I feel better too. From the last time we talked, I was pretty sick.
You were pretty sick, and you either you're completely healthy or you were faking it back then. It's one or the other. But yeah, you and I spent many, many hours on the phone over the last couple of years, just specifically talking about your health and what you were going through. But you look really, really great tonight, man. So how is your health? Are you back?
Well, yeah. I have rheumatoid arthritis, which is a chronic illness. It's an autoimmune disease. And I was on chemotherapy for the better part of 6.5 years. And 2020, when COVID came, my doctor told me, he said, I'm afraid if you get COVID, you're going to be in bad trouble. So let's pull you off all this stuff. And they did. And I went from a cane, and if I went anywhere traveling, I was in a wheelchair, to where I've got my life back and my hobby, which you and I like and love. I'm able to do that again. And so, yeah, I'm shouting for joy.
Right. You had said now tonight we're going to talk about you and the book and stuff. But before we get around to that, I'm not a doctor. I don't dispense of medical advice. But when you were going through all of that, I remember you made a comment to me, if you don't mind me saying. You said, Jimmy, I don't know if it's the illness or the medication that is messing me up. Yeah. I don't know what to do. Do you remember saying that to me?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And to this day, my friend Jim from the government, Jim Van, everybody has heard of Jim, I think. He came to see me in 2016, and he convinced me to start praying for myself, which I never would do. I always thought that I wasn't worthy. I didn't feel right doing it, and I waited forever until I got scared with this COVID thing. It really scared me bad when my doctor said, you're probably going to die if you get COVID. So I went out and I started praying, and I will say it was either that or getting off the medication, because I went from barely able to get out of bed and walk to I can do things I like to do now much better. And
what when you make that decision, what is it? Is it a coin toss, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you, because that's a really big decision. How did you make it?
Well, I did it on faith. I listened to what my friend told me, and then I listened to the doctor when he said, you'll be in trouble if you get COVID. And it was when it was really coming out the first round of it, and everybody was being intubated, they call it. And my immune system was shot. And because all the meds they put me on, I was on like $17,000 a month worth of shots, and having to get myself in the stomach and all these pills. And I would take it all on Sunday, and by Thursday, I was finally able to pull myself out of bed. And then 2 days of good, and then it was right back into it. But all I know is I'm back, and I'm feeling a whole lot better.
You look great, man. You've done straight up. Now, let's talk. Well, we're talking about you, but before we go knee deep into this and into the book, I know that everybody is noticing that airplane, that RC plane that's hanging over your shoulder. And that's not, you don't turn the camera around or anything. Just let everybody just imagine. Right. But I've seen it, right? Okay. In front of you is probably 20 or 30 more planes hanging, right? And that's your world, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my world. When I was 8 years old, my mother bought me a little Cox plane, and Jimmy, the same thing. He had the same thing. So if everybody's wondering, we're both RC fanatics. We love it. But I started flying when I was 8, and it drug me into being a commercial pilot as well by the time I was married. And but I've always done it, and that's my love. I love it. I love using my hands. I can lose hours in my little shop just piddling on this stuff. And
I have more mini screwdriver sets that any single man should be allowed to have. I think it's illegal, the amount of micro screwdrivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got little micro belt sanders.
I do. I have got my Dremel kit is bigger than yours.
Yeah, I bet. I actually have 4 Dremel tools.
Yeah, man. I've got wired. I've got cordless.
Yeah.
And my guitars. Oh, so check this out. And then we're going to get into UFOs, everybody. Right. So I found this really cool use for my Dremels. See all my guitars behind me?
Yeah, I got you.
Polishing the frets with the Dremel buffing wheel, right? So you get the metal compound, right?
Right.
And you get that thing go, and you get it into the metal compound. I've got 4 different levels of compound. But anyway, you get that in, and then right on the frets. What's that? And I used to do it by hand with steel wool, right? 4/0 steel wool. Listen to Chris and I talk about that. Nobody knows what 4/0 steel wool is, but Chris and I do.
Yeah.
So I would do that by hand. It'd take me for the Dremel. It was so fun. I did like 20 guitars in one weekend with the Dremel.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Love my Dremel. Have you put a camera on one of those planes?
I have 2 planes I have built to do that with, and before I did it, I got a drone that I'm trying to learn first-person view on, and
Okay.
so I've already got a plane set up to do that with.
Okay, because my question is, this is my tie-in. This is Dremels and RC planes into UFOs. You're going to like how I do this. Yeah. Have you thought about that? Right? Orb, overhead and firing up a plane and taking it up there, or possibly a drone. Have you thought about doing this?
Yeah, I have. The drone I have it doesn't have return home at night and that kind of thing. So the one I have wouldn't be feasible. But if I had a Maverick, Maverick or something of that sort, where you can send it up and forget about it, and it comes home when it's ready, finds its way home, that would be a pretty interesting thing to try.
I have, I'm not going to name names, Chris. There's no reason to do that. But you and I have a lot of mutual friends and that have been out to your property and have called me, dude, right? You're not going to believe, and you got to see this video. And these are people that I trust and that I know really well, and that have been out there, that have been stopped in their tracks. That not only, we all agree that the phenomenon is real, but to have your situation that has gone public, and then to have people out on your property that I know that have gone through these experiences, they come away pretty shaken, right? And how do you feel about that, having people come out? It's one thing with you and your family, but to bring people out to the property, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's what I'm supposed to do. And for the longest time, the phenomenon wouldn't interact outside of my family. It was very shy. But along about 2019, that all changed. You remember I told you this before, something hovered over my pond for 30 minutes, and I filmed it for almost 18. And that's when I decided to come forward, and I went on your show talking about that. I hadn't talked in years, and it told me then, we're going to allow you to film us with camera and witness. That's what it said. And sure enough, since that time, the interaction has grown exponentially to where, tonight I walked going out to my shop. I had 3 fly right over my head, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. We had 25, 30 people here not too long ago. It was close to 20. It was 15 and a crew and others. There's over 20 people here, and we had a whole big show. I mean, in the trees over our heads, and it's probably some of the same ones you're talking about.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this pretty directly. I haven't shared any of Chris's videos that he sent me. He sent me those in confidence, but there was. Over a period of about a week, Chris was sending me some stuff, and I was looking, and Chris, I see stuff all the time, but the stuff that is happening at your place is different, and it's different to me. There's something else going on.
Yeah.
Do you feel? Okay, I know that you write about this in the book. I understand that, and we have talked about this before. But science today. Physics today, quantum physics, theoretical physics, is definitely talking about entanglement and something going on at the quantum level. When you have 20 or 30 people out at your house, are you calling them in? Are they reaching out to you? Are they saying, hey, did you guys order pizza? You want us to come by? Is it like that?
Well, it let's just say it's always waiting. It's always there. I don't have to pre-plan. When I go outside, I just like you would call if you had um, friends across the street, you were to shout out to them and say, "Hey, we're here in the yard. Come." Well, they hear that and they come, and or they're waiting on me when I walk out the door. It's an everyday thing, um, and it has really grown to that, and very impressive. And this quantum entanglement thing, that's what we assume that we're doing. It is pretty much it's up for people to debate about, but I can tell you we've been filming for well over. I started doing it in 2017, 2016. A friend in Texas would call me and things would appear, and now it's gotten to where I have a friend heading over to Europe to a NATO base right now in Italy, and we're going to do an experiment this week. There's a good chance it'll show up over that NATO base, which it has over Washington, D.C. many times, and it shows up there when it shows up here at the same time. It's entangled.
Right. And when that happens, is it described the same?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Let's say we had people question that. Oh, it's got to be the same miles. Well, no, it's 450 miles apart. You can't see it when it's down. So I had my friend in Washington, D.C., and he had his camera focused on the sky. We always pick a spot. So he's looking north, right, up towards Cassiopeia. And so I actually took my camera without telling him, and I brought it down to the ground, and I faced the woods, my chicken coop. And the minute he had one appear and flash at him, it is a flash. And he said, "Hey, I got a flash." Immediately, time to the millisecond, the orb flashed on my chicken coop about 25 yards away. So it's totally entangled. So it's not the same. It's just different. Sometimes they come from different directions. One might be coming from the south and one from the west, but they'll flash at us. And, it's all pretty amazing stuff.
Why don't we mess with Lockheed Skunk Works? They're right down the street. I'm
sure we could.
Yeah. I could stand up on my patio where I can see Lockheed, right? And I think we should mess around. I think we should do the mess around. I would love that.
Oh, we can try it. My friends my friends may say otherwise, but we should give it a try.
We should give it a try. Your phone's going to ring. Mine's going to ring. They're going to be at my front door. Okay, church, you and Bledsoe need to. We're trying to work out here. Right. The book is called UFO of God, and it's a great title. I think that when most people see it, it's a strong title, right? It's a very suggestive title. Right. Why'd you call it that?
Because I actually believe everything is from God. If it's extraterrestrial or if it's angelic, somebody created it all, and it's not by chance, right? So we got to give that. But if you look at this cover of this book, it's a lost Leonardo, and there's something special about that cover. He's holding an orb in his hand. And we filmed these orbs even recently with a thermal camera. And it was filmed, which everybody might get to see that later this summer. But it looks exactly like the ball, the little crystal ball he's holding in his hand. And I see them all the time, and they'll look like that, translucent little balls and they get bigger and smaller, but they're usually about the size of a bowling ball to a beach ball. But if you look at that ball, anybody that knows this, and Leonardo would have absolutely known it, when you look to a crystal ball, everything in the background will be reversed, but not on that painting. So there's something he's trying to tell us there. And I think that if you read the book, you'll understand more why I named it that.
Can I? We'll discuss that a little bit tonight.
Okay.
The painting's called Salvador Mundi, right? And one of the great, I mean, the ball has always been a mystery to all of us, and of course the the hand, but it's also the face is such a big deal about this painting. Right. But you've got the eyes covered,
right?
What's going on, man?
That is everything about that cover was designed to get everybody's attention.
Well, it got mine.
Yeah,
for sure.
There were experts that helped me design it, and I mean real experts that know how to get attention, and it all says something. It says UFO and God in the same. I think it's time, Jimmy, for the people of religious faith to talk about this subject. You got to. It's time. It's time for everybody to talk about it.
You, in the past, something that we've talked about a lot, and I never pushed the issue, and one of the, which is the religious side of this.
Right.
On my show, I try to leave two things alone. Politics and religion.
Right.
Let's divide the audience, right? Let's just get everybody fighting. But we've talked a lot about the Easter visits. That for you? Was that the lean towards the religious component with your experiences?
That has something to do with it. I was born and raised in the Bible Belt. My family was Baptist, still are, and my wife, I married a Pentecostal holiness girl, and they're a lot more strict. And I was a deacon in the church, and when I came home talking about this, the whole world closed in on me. The church, all of them, the community. Well, it was a spiritual thing because I was crying out for help. I was sick. I had near death. I'd lost everything I had and was trying to figure out how to feed my children at 46 years old. And they're all at home, small. My daughter was 9 or 10 years old. And they all turned on me like I had the devil had paid me a visit. And I knew better. I knew it wasn't that way. And I have, it never quit coming. But I don't think they all know this true story completely. I think there's a lot for us all to learn. I believe that the same thing they were seeing back in the days, 2,000 years ago, is the same thing we're seeing today. What is it? We need to study it. We need to find out more. I don't want to make claims and try to influence anybody's thought. You can believe whatever you want to believe. It's extraterrestrial and angelic. I just know it's spiritual. It talks on a conscience level. This is John Alexander speaks about this, and my manager David Broadwell. He was here on October the 13th of last year, and sitting in my living room at the front door, with small little cabin we live in, and his chair was at the front door, and I'm facing him 8 or 10 feet away. And Emily and her husband got up to go get carry out for us, and Yvonne was cleaning dishes or something. But anyhow, it just became David and I for a minute. Well, suddenly, I'm not looking at David anymore. I have a vision of this presence over top of the house. Same thing I always get. I get this vision. It's like put in my head. Then I feel this energy well up through me. And I looked at David. I said, "It's here now." And he stood right up and opened the front door, and it was hovering over top of the house. And as soon as I got up to come out behind him, here comes the second one and the third one. And it was so close, he filmed it with his cell phone. He looked at me, he said, my God, he said, John Alexander was correct. You do know ahead of time. I said, well, yeah, I do. I hear them. I hear them in visions, and I feel them. And so that alone is it telepathic? What is it? I'm not sure, but it's conscience based. It's a spiritual connection to me. And but I'm not going to tell you it's Jesus Christ by no means. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know, but I do know it is benevolent, and it's for me it is, and it's spiritual.
Is David going to church now?
Yeah, he was there tonight. Believe it or not, he sent the pictures from church.
Oh man,
Yeah.
He's laughing right now. I know he's listening. But yeah, so it can be a change to everybody. I like the way that you want to define spiritual,
right,
as opposed to religious, because let's face the facts here. Everybody's got a religion, right? They're all over the place, man. They're invented every single day. We got a new one. And so that's that. That's not what we are referring to here. But what do we do for those that want to make this a Catholic thing, make this a Virgin Mary thing, a Virgin Mother thing, a Fatima thing? There are similarities with Fatima and in your situation for sure. Right. And I think that those three kids knew in advance that something was going down too as well. And just like yourself. So those comparisons are there, but you don't want to make that comparison, do you?
No, not at all. Remember, I was born Baptist, and in that religion, they never talk about the mother of Jesus, only talk about Jesus. You never hear about her at all, very little. So I don't know her. And my experience with this woman, this lady, was not to me the Virgin Mary at all. In fact, I think she's always been here, and I think that the Catholics are beautiful people, but it's just like the Baptists and the rest. It's a man-made thing. They have rules. I don't like rules. I don't like nobody telling me I got to pay for faith. I get it freely. I can walk out and say, I'm here, and the sky comes alive. And we can all do that. We can all do it. No offense to the church, but, it's right. for us all. It's not for one. It's not for one to charge for it or feed you a little bit. We can all have that connection.
Yeah. What do they say? Don't send change. It'll wait for the baby Jesus. Right? We like the kind that folds. I've always had issues with that. I think we most do that don't understand. Okay, but and now here's the caveat, right? Here's the but. You have had things shown to you from the lady. And the comparisons to Fatima and others. This is not this is not a unique situation.
Right.
Did you ever stop and wonder, because I'm going to get to the spiritual side of what a UFO may be in just a second, and the creation of the universe. Right. But could it be where you might have to step back and go, wow, I guess she was the Virgin Mary. Have you had that question in your mind?
Not at all.
Ever. And why is that?
Because I wasn't raised to believe that. So when she came, I didn't see it in that light. I saw something that was totally beyond our imagination. Beautiful, caring, and she didn't say, I'm a Catholic or I'm a Baptist or I'm this. She just said, you have a burden you must bear. You're not going to back out on us. And that's supercharged me to do what I'm doing today. I would have quit if she hadn't come. But there was never any sign or anything for me to believe it was of any religion other than it was from heaven. This lady was a heavenly a spirit. She came out of nowhere, appeared like supernaturally. That's what angelic beings, according to the Bible, are spirits, ministering spirits is what it says. So they're supernatural.
Okay, so we're talking about, at the same time, we're talking about like the river incident, right? That's a craft that came down and landed in the field, right? You've got Chris and your coworkers, your contractors. You've got a dude that comes out of the bushes, right? Red eyes, right? I mean, now, is that spiritual? Is that godlike, or is that ET? And obviously, you feel that the lady is connected to a craft that has landed near your house, and your son he's made a close encounter of the third kind, right?
Right. Well, let me say this. I struggled for many years with all this until I learned that the technology is the problem everybody has. I discussed this with NASA, Tim Taylor, many times. Tim, it's the technology that blows everybody's mind. Well, if you start looking at the newest science, molecular biology, if you look at the molecular level, you can go on television now and Google on YouTube, electron microscope or microscopy, they call it, of the molecular machines. Your body is full of like 10 trillion cells, and in these cells are tiny machines. They look like a dump truck or like something pulling along something, and they fall in line. It's too complex for it not to be made by some mind. Somebody encoded this. Somebody wrote the program. We're in a simulation. We have to be. And so if the body's made full of machines, whoever made it undoubtedly has machines as well, right? So I don't know. I'm in this in awe and wonder every day, just like everybody else.
Yeah, I thought about that so much, in that you and I are made of the exact same stuff. It's called atoms, right? Particles. The exact same stuff that start off, the same atoms make this coffee cup. Right? The same, man. It's not, there's not anything special going on here that makes it different. But something is telling everything in our body what to do.
Yeah.
Hair, blood, right? Toenails, whatever it is, skin cells, beard, right?
Right.
How does this happen? Unless there's something divine and spiritual about it. DNA, I don't think, was an accident, Chris. Do you?
No, it absolutely wasn't. In fact, that's where you can really find these detailed simulations of these micro machines within your DNA, replicating cells and replicating DNA to the exact code, and it does it, and they line up all these. But something I've learned by studying some stuff from NASA, being involved with certain people from there, I learned about metamaterial 14 years ago. I learned about the same stuff Gary Nolan's doing now. I knew about it a long time before he ever come on the scene, or a good while. And but it's incredible to see um, it's mind-boggling, the whole thing of how it all fits together. The DNA, the machines there, the machines in the sky. Uh, you know, I can say this: the study from NASA that I'm referring to was green light. Now, some there believe they have found the program that the green light, when it shines on, when the sun shines on the earth, it hits it at an angle, which causes a green light spectrum, which is the center of the color spectrum, right? Trees are green, grass is green, everything's green. Well, there's a chemical called, I think it's ADT, which is basically hemoglobin in the blood and the chlorophyll in a plant or in a in plants. It's the same principle. When this green light hits that, it starts the life process. So that light is encoding wirelessly the instructions for life, for everything. So they believe that that's God talking, or the program, or whatever it is, encoding every living thing is coming through green light. And it's funny, in the Bible, there's passages that says, and he maketh me to lie down in green pastures. What is that about? And even NASA recognizes this, the same scripture.
So now let's go out a little bit. The book is called UFO of God.
Right.
We have what that implies. But if we go further out and further out and further out to the beginning of everything, before the Big Bang, we can start there. Is that thinking mechanism, whatever started this creation of everything, is that the God that is on the cover of this book?
Well, I don't have no way of knowing that at all. What drew me to this cover was my spiritual connection and the orb that Leonardo painted on there. That clear orb is so unreal because it has, if you look at a real high definition copy of it, you'll see little bubbles inside, water bubbles. Well, Lori Wagner, you know her. We were
know her well, yeah.
Lori and I and her daughter and some other folks were in the Encinitas, standing on the bank looking on the Pacific Coast Highway, looking out over the ocean. They wanted to see something. They flew me out there. So we're standing there and these orange orbs are peering out over the ocean, and they'd go off and appear in different places, real low, right on the water. So we stayed there about an hour and we turned. I was going to go back to the hotel, which was, we were parked at my hotel there. And as soon as we turned our backs to the ocean, they came from behind us. It came right overhead, about 200 feet up. Two orbs. We all looked up. In fact, Lori's daughter said, "Oh my God, what is that?" And well, they right over top, and they looked like water drops, just like the orb he's holding in his hand. And they joined together like water would do, like bloop. It just kind of, they sucked in on one another, and it jiggled a bit. And then it shot off to Mexico, like out of a cannon. But they looked like raindrops. They looked just like that orb.
I remember Lori telling me about that.
Yeah.
And her description of it, first off, she's a very, 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 very smart person. Right. I mean, super smart, but also very, very, very cool. All right. Okay. But when Lori says something to me like that, I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen really closely. And her attention to detail is what she does, by the way. She's a producer. She's really good at what she does. And she described it just like you are describing it now. Yeah. And she was completely blown away by it. She said, "Jimmy, they came down. They came down, man." I said, "What? They joined up? What?" Yeah. Now, is that you? In other words, is that you causing something like that to happen at the beach in Encinitas, or could Lori have done that on her own?
Everybody knows pretty much it's me. I don't like to pat me on the back, but yeah, I have a friend that is a professor from Charlotte, and you'll see more of him this summer. And I'm allowed to say History Channel is producing a new series coming out this summer, and I'll be featured in that. Well, he was in that too, but he describes many times of being at his house. He doesn't see anything. He picks up the phone and he calls me, and I say, okay. And as soon as we make connection, boom, it appears right over top of him. And does with my friend David. Now they've gotten to where they can see it if they go out and stay long enough. John calls it the hitchhiker. Jim calls it a contagion. But it does kind of jump from me to others at times. But if they lose that connection, they call me and it comes right back. So
now, Chris, if this is going on here, it's got to be throughout the universe.
Yeah,
the Milky Way,
I
right?
think so, yeah.
And do you believe that the conscious connection would also be universal, that it would be operating under those same principles on another planet? In other words, this phenomenon, whatever it is, spiritual, whatever that connection is operating the same way?
I would say probably so. Of course, we're speculating, but yeah. I think everybody has the ability to connect to this if you figure out how. And for one, you got to be introduced to it. It doesn't want to go against our free will, for sure. I know this 100%. But if you seek it and you're freely wanting to see it and you're introduced to it, you most likely be able to see it again.
Now, I'm going to talk about the lady briefly one more time, and then we're going to move on. We talked. You have talked a lot about these Easter messages and these Easter things. Have those continued? We're in 2023. You first told me about that in 2017. So that's oh, wait a minute. Is Easter this weekend?
No, it's the 9th of April, I think. But
9th of April. Okay, it shows you how Catholic I am.
Let me tell you about this past Easter, Jimmy.
Okay.
This past April, I always know and prepare for Easter. It always starts right now. It starts increasing, and the activity gets greater and greater right on up to Easter till something beautiful happens. Well, last year, my friend David, which you've met David, he's one of my best friends on the planet, and he had his experience here with me, and it really got him. And he'd had an experience before in Washington, D.C., and called John Alexander and said, John, I just got to know what's happened to me. And John said, well, you need to call Chris. And anyhow, we turned into David said, Chris, you got to write a book. You have got to tell your story. And I wasn't really interested in it. I mean, I've got a grandchild I'm in love with, but David convinced me, you're going to have to write a book. So long about Easter, he had worked hard to put together a plan to do it and put it all on paper. And he searched for a ghostwriter and found a guy, and he came to me and he's like, Chris, we got to get this going. And you have got to lead this for your children to read about their grandpa. Don't you want to do that? So he convinced me. So I get this contract or this offer, this thing he put together to agree to do this book the week of April of Easter. So I sat on it and I struggled with it and I thought about it. Lord, if I have to hire a lawyer, I don't want to do that. So I had all these thoughts about not doing it. So Friday night, Easter Friday night, which is a beautiful something about Good Friday. All the farmers know that you plant your crops on Thursday, they won't do well. You plant them on Friday, they do beautiful. Plant them on Monday, they die usually.
Okay.
Seriously, it's something special about that day. The Farmer's Almanac tells you the same. Good Friday. So I go out on Good Friday. I walk out to my little shop here and I look up at the sky. And I said, "Did you send me this? Is this your will? Do you want me to write this book?" And immediately, Jimmy, an orb appeared out over the pond. So I take my little psionics. It's not much bigger than this remote. It's a little more round, but about 4 inches long. So I swing it around and I'm got it focused on this orb over my pond. And I just hung up the phone with David and I look, sometimes I'll point it at it and I'll look around to see if others are coming. So the minute I did that, I look up and I said, "Oh my God, what is that?" You can hear me on the video say it. Well, from way up high, way on past the orb that's over the pond, way on up high, I see something coming down. And it's coming towards me. It's glowing orange, bright orange. And as it gets closer, I begin to see these giant wings doing this, flapping. And it comes right over top of me. And as it's coming over me, it changes to white, glowing white. And it's as big as a 737. That's what it looked like. So it turns and heads south, and it's flapping these huge wings as it flies on out of sight. And I filmed it with my psionics, but I've not shared it with outside the family or a couple of friends. Incredible. What was it?
No, text me, man. That one I want to see.
Yeah, and in fact, some of your mutual friends saw it a couple of weeks ago, and or 3 or 4 weeks ago when they were here, and blew them away. But
so you signed the contract.
Right? Yeah, I signed it gladly, and here we are today with this book that everybody's making great remarks about. I'm so thankful for.
Everybody's really, really happy about it. And okay. Let's talk about missing time for a second.
Okay.
Now, I've never experienced it. Not that I know of. Could have. Well, would I know? Right? I don't know.
Right.
You're right. Tell me about the first time. I'm going to say time twice in a sentence. Tell me about the first time you realized that some missing time had happened, and how did you figure that out?
Well, the first time was on the river event, and after it happened, I lost 4 hours of time, and I came walking back to where they were, and they told me you were gone all night. And I'm like, "There's no way," and I didn't believe them. I could not believe them, and I tried to think about it, and I couldn't remember it. My head would hurt so bad that it would put me out. I'd pass out asleep with people talking to me. My wife would tell me, "If you pressure him much, he's going to fall out." And I did. But it was not until Chris Jr. sat down with me 6 months later, really. And we really started talking, and he made me realize, because I believe my son, right? "Don't you remember, Dad? It was dark. It was daylight when you left. When you come back, we didn't get home to 10:30, 11 o'clock. The ground was icy when we got home. It was frost on the ground." But it was all these details he kept telling me that made me realize that something actually happened. I could not believe it. And then Dr. Michael O'Connell, a Harvard-trained hypnotherapist. He trained under John Mack. The Discovery Channel brought him. And he came before the show a couple of weeks, and he worked on me to get this headache to leave. And he did. He was very successful at it. And then I began to think. So when he put me under regression, he said, "You have had you have had what we would call a download, that's what he called it, of a lot of information. And if you remember it all at once, it could cause you to go crazy. It's just too much information. Your brain goes into safe mode. It can't handle all. It's got this protection device built in your brain. He was explaining this. He said, but I made it to where you'll remember everything over time, little by little, not all at once. And that was in early 2008, nearly a year later, that he did all that. And right away, all these, every time I'd go to sleep, I'd wake up. I wouldn't wake up. I'd be screaming in the middle of the night, shouting, crying, terrified. My wife was filming me with her iPad. The kids would come in and see me asleep. I'd wake them all up in the house. I was still asleep. And it was scaring them. But all these dreams started coming, and some of them were bad dreams, really bad dreams, scenes of the destruction of the world and famine and all that. And I can't verify any of that's real. I just know I had all this happen to me. So I never talk about that. I only talk about what the lady shared with me, because some of that may be no telling, what I was remembering there in these dreams. But I do remember some of it. That was the first time that I consciously knew that I had lost time and started discovering that I really did, and accepted it, that it happened.
Do you think you've unpacked everything by now?
A good portion of it.
Right. Are you writing it down?
I have written some of it down. I sure have.
How does that make you feel? Not emotionally, but some people would say, "Oh, Chris thinks he's a prophet, right? He thinks he's Nostradamus, and suddenly you've got that label." Can you feel? I'm sure you've heard it many times, but how does that make you feel?
Well, I don't want to be known as that, and I don't give out predictions. I don't like doing that.
You've always refused. I've tried to get you to do it, by the way.
Well, it can be negative, and my whole life is about being positive. I tell my children and everybody I know, if the news bothers you, turn it off. No need in getting up in the morning and seeing something that you have no control over that messes your whole day up, and then you affect others around you. It just comes out of people. So I like to stay positive. If I was negative and I allowed it around me, I would never have these experiences. They would not come, because I've experienced that. I've come out in a bad mood, or all down and out and negative and over something, and nothing. But the minute I change all that, they just start coming, and it's
has the missing time continued?
Yes, in fact, Chase Klotsky, right, and her husband Pete. Chase called me, and I write about this in the book, and we go on a short and sweet. It was an event that happened in the hometown my mother was born in, which was about 12, 13 miles from where I lived. And she called me, "Hey, you ever heard of St. Paul's in North Carolina?" I said, "Yes, I have. In fact, before you tell me anything, let me tell you something." I said, this was Sunday night or Monday night, she called me. I said, "Saturday night, Chase, I was outside sitting on my patio looking up at the sky, and these two big balls of orange orbs appeared, just turned on and came straight down and hovered over the trees in my backyard, both of them. And they shot off south straight towards St. Paul's." And she said, "Oh my God." And she began to tell me about a ghost hunter crew that had an experience and lost time in that town. So it turned in a week later, she and her husband come out, and I called a friend from NASA, and he flew out. I picked him up just for the day, We all met and walked the property. But that night, and this is in the book, it's really crazy because it blew Pete Klotsky's mind bad. He's a naval sub commander.
No, he's a pretty straightforward, kind of intimidating. He's a captain in the Navy.
Yeah, he's a huge guy. I mean, like Navy SEAL type.
He's a big dude. No, he's compared to Chase. Chase is what's big as a beer can. And Pete's a big guy, and I don't think you can shake Pete too easily. So what happened?
So he got shaken that night because Pete carries a watch, a compass on his wrist that he navigates under the ocean with. The guy's a navigator like no tomorrow. He can go from here to Hawaii and never see the surface. And that's something that's said, So we were walking in the forest that night and not giving the story away, but there was a lot that happened, a lot. But long story short, we all walked. There were 8 of us, and Chase and I were in the rear. Pete was leading the way, and the group that had the encounter was between us. We were in single file walking through the forest, 100 yards from where we entered the woods to the power line, straight across through the woods to a big high-tension power line. Took 15 minutes to walk from one side to the other through these woods. When we got there, we stayed about an hour. So we turned around after, just having a good talk and enjoying the cool air at night and all of us together. And so Pete's like, okay, we're going to take this heading to go back to the car, right? So he falls in front and everybody gets behind Pete and we start in the forest. And I'm right behind Chase. I'm bringing up the rear. And I tell a lot more in the book about what I was doing, how I figured out. A NASA friend told me what to do. And I don't want to give these secrets away because it's pretty amazing stuff. And I did what he told me. And long story short, where we entered the woods to start with, to go to the power line, we were parked in the field, a bean field. As soon as we go in the woods, there's a big ditch, big, deep, dry ditch, no water in it. So we go down in the ditch and we come out, we walk 15 minutes, go to the power line. We start back and our goal was to come out at the car. So you got to go through the ditch and there's the car. It's parked right near the ditch. When we got to that ditch and we walked in the ditch and came out the other side, we walked back out on the power line. And Pete looked at me and said, what in the world happened? I mean, his eyes were literally this big. And everybody's like, oh my God, what happened? Well, I knew what happened. I saw it. I saw the eye shine from this being that was there. I showed it to Chase. She saw it. But
wait. Pump the brakes, Chris.
I can't give too much of this away. Right?
No. Oh, you save it for the book. Eye shine.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, something peeped around the tree at us and took a peep at us, and it looked like 2 glowing green orbs about this big, but there was something else there. And I'm in line behind Chase. I tapped her on the back and I pointed just like that. And she looked and it was, oh my God. And right after that, we lost time. It was during that time that we had missing time. So she calls me on Monday. That was on Saturday night. She called me Sunday or Monday. And all these people, they had these ghost hunters. They had helmets on. They had vests. They had all kind of detectors and timers and stuff in their cars. And she calls me. She said, you're not going to believe what happened to us the other night. I said, yeah, I know what happened, Chase. We lost 15 minutes of time. She said, oh, my God, how did you know that? She said it was exactly 12 minutes. I said, because that's how long it took to walk from one side to the other. We just didn't remember walking to the ditch the second time, the first time.
Right.
So, yeah, and they recorded it with their helmets and all that stuff.
And did you talk to Pete after that?
Yeah.
Straight man Pete. How is he doing?
He's doing. I hadn't talked to him in a long time, but he's always a favorite of mine.
No, I mean after that event, how was he doing?
His head was blown. His whole mind was blown. Everything. Chase talks about this. She's just not written a book on it yet, but she talks about it. You get her on your show, she'll tell you about it.
Chase Klutsky.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
So, there are three things on the cover of the book without giving anything away. No, four actually. And except for the clouds of fire, this got everybody talking. And what I mean is this: we've got, of course, missing time, which we've been talking about. Healings, people talk about that a lot, right? Yeah. And hitchhikers. Hitchhikers right now is popular. Am I saying that correctly? Yeah, popular. People are talking about it. It's been on many TV shows. It's been mentioned now in a few books. Friends of yours, people are talking about hitchhikers. Can you give me your first experience when not only with a hitchhiker, but when you stepped back and went, well, okay, I guess this is happening?
I noticed it a long time ago, especially, there's certain people that are public now, like Dr. Bob McGuire. He's one of them that talks about how it followed him home. And I told him, it's going to follow you home, Bob. I can promise you that, because it told me. I knew it was going to. It wasn't something that just happened. He had an experience here with me that changed his life. Really changed his life. I had orbs right over my head, a lot of them flashing off at him, and he was like, oh my God, he was seeing this. A lot of times it appeared right over me. But sometimes it looks like fire, or like a flame, a yellow flame around me. I've had it appear next to my arm, and I'm like, oh my God, and it's burning right here. And while sitting in a chair, it's done that. But that term hitchhiker, and I told him when we put that in the book, that's kind of a negative term to me, but it describes something that follows you home. The phenomenon will go home with you. And I know a lot of people that's been here that that's happened to, a lot of people. And sometimes they can't make it happen any longer, and sometimes it does it a while and it goes away. Or they call me back and it starts all over again.
Yeah, it's something that they don't sign up for.
Right.
You're not volunteering for the hitchhiker program.
Most of the time, everybody that I've noticed it happen to, they're not afraid. They saw it here, they accepted it, and was amazed by it. And I get the word, it's going to go home with you, and it does. In fact, one of your friends that were here recently, I told him that was going to happen, and it happened to
him. Text me who, so I can call him tomorrow. Now, you've mentioned orange a lot tonight. What do colors represent?
I hear people talk about that all the time, and I don't have a clue. Because these orbs are all colors. They're in my house just this last month. I saw a green one in my room. I got up to come outside and just check the sky. I go out about every night to see if it's cloudy or if it's, and a lot of times this time of the year, you don't get many good nights. So I walked out for a few minutes. I came back in the house, and my wife looked up at me and she said, she was still in the same chair. She said, when you walked out the door, a green orb appeared in your chair, right where you were sitting. And it started sizzling, making an electrical sound, bzz, bzz, like so. It was about this big around. It was glowing bright green. And she said, and suddenly it popped. It just went pop. It exploded, and it filled the whole room with green light. Well, we've seen orange ones. We've seen yellow ones. But there has never been any negative of any kind. I don't really know. I've seen them change colors from white to green to red to yellow to orange to
Blue.
Yeah, blue. Yeah,
Blue.
see a lot of blue.
Have you ever shined a laser at one?
Yeah, I have a lot of people say you need to get a laser. Well, I don't need a laser to make them appear or to get them to move or do anything.
I'm not referring to that.
Right.
A laser will either bounce off of it or pass through it.
Yeah.
I've seen both. I've seen both phenomenon, right? And I'm just curious if you've got a high altitude orange orb out there, if you fired one of those high powered lasers at it, if you're going to see it reflect off of it, which would indicate a solid object, or if it would pass through it, which is some kind of energy field.
Yeah, I really don't know. I haven't tried that. I do know that they're if you see them in the daytime, you see them up close when they're not highly energized. They look exactly like the orb on the cover of my book.
I was with a group of people. I don't know if Lori was there. She might have been this particular year. This is about 8 years ago. And got this. I'm going to guess, Chris, if I was going to give a guesstimate, I'm going to say 50-foot green orb. It's going across the desert, low across the desert, and it turns up and heads up, and it eventually just goes into space, right? And there's a couple of hundred of us. We all see this thing in video, and it was incredible. I'm watching it through the night vision, and it's tracking across the desert floor. It's big, man. It's about a mile away. It's not far,
right?
But there's like 4, 5, 6 people with those military lasers. So I'm looking at it, and I think I've got like a 2-time night vision, so I'm seeing it enlarged somewhat in the night vision. I can clearly see it, but I'm watching the lasers as people are pointing at it bounce off of it. I thought it was a glowing. I didn't know if it was solid or not, but I was thinking it was some kind of energy ball until I saw the laser go across the front of it and sparkle and bounce off of it. It's like, holy crap, that's solid.
Yeah,
it's just a solid ball. And we watched this for about 5 minutes. It was a long time, man. This thing going across and then eventually, turning up and stopped and turned into a star. But while it was going across and started to turn up, everybody was hitting it with their lasers. Right. And so I've done that a lot since then to see if the laser will bounce off or pass through it. It's something that I think you should have one in your little shed there.
Yeah.
In your little workspace for when this happens. Just go out and see if it's solid or not.
Yeah, well, a lot of times they appear ground level, right near me, 25 feet, 10 feet, 5 feet. My son Ryan has a friend named Tom Barber. He's a musician with a group called Chelsea Grin, and Tom's the lead vocalist with that group. I never met him. Ryan says he wants to come to your house. Well, he brings Tom and his fiance, and all my children came to meet him. This guy's got a pretty big following. 20, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Well, anyhow, we're standing 20 feet from here, and I threw my hands up in the air, which I feel a connection when I do that. And immediately they started appearing. And they appeared as close as 10 feet over our heads, half a dozen of them. And sometimes they'll be this big. Sometimes they'll be this big. Sometimes they'll come right over our head and leave sparks in a streak when they come over. Like I call them streakers. They'll go up and down, undulating when they fly. So it's never no telling what size you're going to see, but I'm pretty sure they're translucent when they're not energized. They look like a raindrop.
Yeah, sure. Almost camouflaged, right? Stealthy,
right?
Blending in with the background, and you wouldn't see them at all. I really quick because I'm going to move on to some other stuff and some current events, of course. What are clouds of fire?
I'm glad you asked that. You've heard of Diana Pasulka, right? I studied with her for a long time, and some other pretty amazing scholars in the biblical world. And what we know is, in the biblical days, let's just say this. Diana told me, she said, George Zervos and I, George was the chair in Wilmington where she worked until he stepped down and she took the position. George is writing a book for Princeton University called The Apocalypse of James, the brother of Jesus. He has a big 2-volume series he had to write, mega thick book. So he stepped down. Anyhow, I studied with George more than Diana. But one thing they both told me is that they saw with their own eyes that the word cloud in the Bible, when King James 500 years ago translated the Bible from the original Greek into English, that they intentionally mistranslated the word cloud. So you can look it up in the Strong's coordinates for Hebrew words, and it's not there. It got missing somehow. But they turned it into a weather phenomenon. But throughout the whole Bible, when it refers to angels or it refers to Jesus coming back, over and over, he says, when I come back, I'm coming riding on or in clouds of heaven. The clouds of heaven. Over and over and over, I'm coming back riding in the clouds. Or in Exodus, when Moses was in the desert with all these people, there was a pillar of a cloud that went before the children of Israel for 38 years. And it was on fire at night, and it fed them manna in the morning and gave them shade by day. And for 38 years, where that cloud went, they stayed up underneath it until it led them.
It lit the way, man. It was a flashlight, too.
Yeah. So these are clouds in the Bible were these same things that we're seeing today. It's the same exact thing. I don't care what anybody says, it's a fact. And I've studied it enough. And if anybody does, they'll find the same answers. I've studied this with the best of the best. And so why did they change that? Why did they not want us to know that? Why did they turn an object in the sky into, because Exodus says, an angel of the Lord went before the children in a pillar of a cloud. Well, a pillar being a cylinder, a cylinder machine, right? So this is why this is in that book. I'm trying to bring this to the world for people to see and study and find out and spark an interest to where maybe one day we can all come together and talk about this and figure out exactly what's happening, because I don't profess to know, but I know that there's things that's been hidden from us.
Do you think, is it as simple as something lost in translation? In that they're trying to tell us something, man. It's up there, right? It's flying, right?
Right.
But there's something lost in the translation. They didn't have a way. They didn't have the words to express it with, did they?
She told me she saw both translations, and they intentionally took the wrong one.
Right.
She told me that, and she said, I can never tell this, but you can. I'm giving you this information. You do what you want with it, but I can never say it. And that's where that come from. And I've studied this for 15 years about it.
What do you make of Chris? Everything in its totality, we've got a lot of crap going on. Yeah. You know, and in the last 5 years, since 2017, since you've come forward too as well, right?
Right.
Everything under the sun has happened. Everything, and anything that we can imagine, all the way to the point where, and I'm not saying there's a connection, but it definitely happened. we're shooting missiles over North America now, at objects. So we've even got that. And I would have never, ever thought of my wildest dreams that this kind of stuff would be happening. But what do you make of it? What do you make of the Department of Defense, ODNI, reports, Congress, the Senate, the president, press conferences, meetings, stuff written into the legislature, budgets? We've got everything going. I didn't even mention pilots and sightings and video and images, and didn't even get into all of that. It's all been going down. What do you think's happening?
Well, I think if everyone reads this book, the government wants to tell us the truth. They want to, but they don't know how. Government's a big thing, and it takes a lot of people coming together to agree on anything. And a lot of them don't want to tell it, but a lot do. But for the most part, it's so complex. It's conscience-based. They know this. So how do you describe this? How do you tell it? If you read my book, I think you'll learn something that the government wants to tell us, but just don't know how. And, I've worked with them for 15 years. This is something I've never talked about. I always hit it way back when I started with them in 2008. It was top secret then. There wasn't no talking about UFOs at all. And 2016, they got a little bit looser on it. But I still never talked about what I was doing or who I was working with. And I wanted to so bad because people would ridicule me. And I just wanted to say, if you only knew I'm working on stem cell research with NASA. I wanted to say that. But I took the beating from everybody. Hoping that would have made a difference. At least I thought it would. But I write about this in the book, and the government folks were the only ones that made sense to me. The public ostracized the whole family and treated us bad. And of course, at that time, the UFO world was into the nuts and bolts, and I'm claiming spiritual. And they were like, that's too much for us. But I never wavered in all these years and the government knew. They knew back then. They know it's real. And what's happening now, I think that in 2020, during the COVID pandemic, the government told it. They told everybody, the world, that it's real. It's really real. They told it right during the pandemic. And so many people didn't pay attention to it. They were focused on COVID. But now NORAD started becoming a little bit more public about what they're seeing. And I can tell you, Jimmy, the balloons don't explain it all. They're seeing stuff all around the world. And I think if I ran the government like Mr. Biden, I would start telling a little bit at the time, trying to condition the public before some whistleblower come along and scared the whole world. Right? Mm-hmm. I think they were worried about me doing that. So, but yeah,
we've heard a lot of chatter on this program and others. About some of the elected officials and military officials inside of Washington, D.C. that have a religious background and upbringing that are very concerned about the religious component of this. And I didn't laugh it off originally when I started to hear this many years ago. But this was something that was going on, and it was a concern.
Yeah.
And where he's military-minded, an elected, I'm just going to say this directly, an elected official says, hey, be careful, man. That they could be demons, right? Be careful who you're reaching out to consciously.
Right.
It could be we could make, and this was something that was discussed, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I say the same thing. If you seek this, you need to make sure your heart's in the right place, because without the right grounding and without a little faith and positivity, you might get something you don't want. I mean, because this is supernatural. Everything is all I can say. It's like supernatural. It's conscience based. It acts like supernatural. But I've never run across anything negative in my 16 years of this. But
not yet.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not out there, because where there's good, there's bad.
But Chris, help me this is where I get confused, and I just want to understand. You and I know each other well, and you've always said to me, Jimmy, just don't hold back. Ask me whatever you want to ask. So when Chris Jr. is eye to eye with, I'm going to say an ET, a species, ET,
right?
That's not religious, is it? We're talking about a physical being there.
Right. Well, these things can, if you read the biblical scripture, what they were seeing, we don't know what they were seeing. They called them angels. They called them, the prophets in the Bible were seeing these things, and they labeled them angelic beings, ministering spirits. But it even says there they can be physical or non-physical.
No, I understand that. I'm specifically talking about Chris, though,
right,
and what he encountered.
Yeah.
Does he feel it was a religious moment, or this was just ET from Zeta Reticuli stopping by to say hello?
He thought he was so afraid. It scared him so bad. He was 17 years old and innocent and out having fun, fishing, and then this happens. They didn't hurt him by any means. They just scared him so bad. And I would tell him, son, they were not bad. You would not be here if they were bad. But Daddy, they were. That's what he would say then. His dad now, but they were. I think they were demons. Like, why would you think that, son? They took me for 4 hours, and I experienced the same thing, the same beings on my property, and it spoke to me and said, you don't understand. We're not here to harm you. We're here to help you. Mm-hmm. And I had a really debilitating illness then that went into remission immediately that night. I never had another symptom from Crohn's disease from that day forward. And for 17 and a half years, I was on medication for that. And so he finally come around after a few years of it, experiencing it with me and seeing how it comes when I call it and how I do it and the spiritual side of it. And now he comes right out here and brings my grandchild and Jessica, and he's just as happy and excited to see it as the rest of us. But
you did such a great job with your kids, man. And I'm going to say that I know Ryan's listening right now. Man, he is smart.
Yeah, he's smart.
He's a smart kid, man.
Yeah.
I think about when you and I were kids. We were not Ryan. We were not Chris Jr., man. We were out doing stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. All right. Again, speaking very directly. I don't know if you've checked out L.A. Marzulli's work or listened to any of his stuff, but he is a biblical scholar, very smart guy, but feet firmly planted in the world of ETs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. But he understands the Bible. And one thing that he says over and over to me and others is that, look, man, if you look at the Bible, just treat it as science fiction. Just look at it like that, right? Just look at it like that, and then you'll understand what they are trying to say here, which is what you are suggesting, right? The way that angels were interpreted back then, angels and angelic. Today, is that what we would just call ET, right?
Yeah. I think it's the same thing. We can interpret it either way we want, but and until you interact with it, which I do on a pretty much a daily basis and in front of people. And the people that have come here and experienced it, lives are changed forever. And they become more spiritual. Um, if they want to call it ET, that's okay. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's what is it? What does it do for you? And um, it's a beautiful thing. I love it. I mean, that's where I don't have television. I haven't had a TV subscription in 10 years. I don't watch it. I stay away from all negative. And I go out and I talk to the heavens, and here they come. And it's like a reunion every night when we see them. And it's just a beautiful thing. It's not a scary thing. And
If cultures 2,000, 3,000 years ago, Old Testament, New Testament, even Jesus himself, right? Okay, let's go straight there. If they had a knowledge of planets in the solar system, in the Milky Way, and galaxies, and from what we understand today with science and physics and astrophysics and astronomy, do you feel that they would have called them angels, or they would have just said extraterrestrials are visiting?
Well, I think they probably both called it that. I don't think, I think back then, yeah, I agree with you there. Well, let's just say yesterday. I think it was yesterday. There was a major news network that came out with, and I just kind of jotted it down. This professor, this physicist, was on one of the major news channels yesterday, and he was talking about how science explains the Bible. It supports extraterrestrials, and this astronomer makes the case how they have existed throughout eternity as God's messengers, but yet he called them extraterrestrials. You see. So it's just words, but what is it? And I think that's where we've got to, all of us agree it's real, and then let the brains and the testing and the study of this begin. I think it complements the Bible 100%. I think religion has caused a lot of people to be turned off because of all the rules and the regulations and the do's and the don'ts, and people making millions, and we got homeless and sick. So, but I love the church. I don't go anymore. I haven't been in 10, 15 years, other than a couple of times because of something special. But I still, I'm more spiritual, and I feel more connected today than I was when I was in the church as a deacon.
How do they? Can I ask you something direct?
Right.
Well, I'm always direct with you. If you went to church today, would it be? Oh man, here comes that UFO guy.
Yeah.
Do you feel that kind of pressure?
Yeah.
Here comes Chris. All right, here we go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've been told if you walk in these doors, you can't never talk about it. Yeah, trust me. That's what turned me away. Is accusing me of being, they brought holy water. The very people I loved and the community I was raised in, they were sprinkling holy water when I was gone, and even when I was home on me and stuff. And I'm like, but I was praying. I was sick. I was calling out to whoever's up there, and these balls of fire came. And I'm not sick anymore. And it wasn't, does the devil come when you pray? Is that what y'all taught me?
Right.
Growing up?
So with holy demon be gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Ryan talks about this. One of the worst things he said was he was about 13 or 14 years old, seeing a guy walk in my room and just force holy water on my head and stuff. And, they thought they were doing God's work. Well, I don't want to be critical because I love the church and I love the people. I just think that it's time we all wake up. It's time we all learn that 2,000 years ago, we look at these people as being backwoods and uneducated. But yet that book is the infallible word of God. Everything in it,
Right.
including eating or drinking poison and holding rattlesnakes, and many have died because of that, is the truth, right? So there's room to grow today. We got a lot of growing and understanding to do, and I just want to start that conversation. I don't care if they kill me. They may try. They killed Jesus, right? They killed the prophets, every one of them. So I'm in a position that I get a lot of criticism because of what I say and do. But I know what I know, and I feel what I feel, and I stand by what I feel. And
what do you think? What do you think the next play is? You mentioned earlier, I'm talking about from the government rolling into 2023. It has shown no signs of slowing down. Every time I thought we were taking a dip over the last 3, 4, 5 years, here we go. It's something else.
right.
And, it takes off again. I think 2023 is something tangible. What do you think is going to roll out? Because you just mentioned, the government wants to say something. Well, okay, what do you think it is that they want to say?
Well, I think my book tells a lot of that about how it's conscience based, and they really don't know what it is. They don't know. It's everybody believes they have all kinds of stuff and free energy and all. From the 16 years I've been around it, I've never heard a whisper of it, and I've been in some really secure places. Of course, they did not show me I'm not special by any means, but I have been able to study with some pretty smart people. And I ask them, why do you need me? Here I'm at NASA in their most secure facility on Earth, where they had machine guns pointed at me when I walked through the door. And they had this black booth. I talk about it in my book. This is really weird. There's a black booth right there. And I was told when I walked by that booth to sing a song, sing it for 4 minutes. Just take a song that's 4 minutes long and sing it. Don't think of nothing but that song. And when you walk by it, by doing that, they can't read your mind. So tell me what that's about.
Wait, what? Seriously?
Yeah, I write about that in my book.
What song did you sing?
The Battle for Evermore.
Yeah, you did Led Zeppelin?
Yeah.
You did Led Zeppelin.
I'm a Led Zeppelin freak. I love it.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, in the what? God. Oh man. Okay. All right. That everybody, you have the permission from me to take that clip and post it all over the internet. You can just post that right there. Battle of Evermore at the NASA skiff secret facility. Here's the thing. When we have the comments from our own government that are coming out, and they're coming out so quickly, it makes me feel that, Chris, that when we have the Wilson Davis document, which I know you're familiar with, and in that document, Dr. Eric Davis, who Dr. Eric Davis is having a conversation with then Rear Admiral Thomas Wilson. And Thomas Wilson says he was out here at Lockheed down the street from my house. He didn't say Lockheed, but let's assume it was Lockheed. And they told him that they had a craft, but they couldn't get it to fly.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Right now, okay. Now, what do we do with that? It was brought up at the UFO hearing last summer, the Wilson Davis document, and these comments are pretty explosive. So when the government wants us to understand that they're trying to get a hold of the phenomenon, right? They're trying to understand it. They don't get it. But on the other hand, we've got a craft, out here at Lockheed. Well, that says that they obviously know that they're visiting us because they've got a craft. So is it two different sides? One is not speaking to the other? and they don't understand?
Well, I agree to that. Yeah, it's very compartmentalized, all this. And I can tell you, there could be all kinds of things out there. There could be multiple races. There could be, my experience has been spiritual. What is it, an ET? We can call it that if you want. That's not what I refer to it as, but yeah, I was told that straight, look at me straight in the eye. He said, these things don't crash. They can come from halfway of the universe, from the center, to here in 2 hours and not go into any kind of warp drive. That's just how fast they can go. 50 million light years away is what the isotopes supposedly read on some of these metallic pieces that I've handled. And we talk about that in the book just 6 months ago, or not even 6 months ago. Yeah, maybe 6. It was in June. I was tested with some of that. And it's pretty interesting. But he said they don't crash. You think they can come that far that fast and they're going to crash here? No, they don't crash. It's more like a gift.
You're bringing that up because you think what is out here at Lockheed was a gift?
Yeah. That's what I was told, that they give it to us to help us evolve.
It makes sense. Why do you think that comment was there in Wilson Davis? We can't make it fly. We can't get it to fly.
Because they can't. They don't know. I've been asked about that, which way the electrons move.
Sure.
Yeah, there's just all kinds of stuff that it's the most technologically advanced. This material, has layers. It can be ultra thin, but have 50 layers of compounds of metal fused together. You just don't know. It's well above our thinking, our heads. But they've been able to get stuff from it, medical stuff. They've done some miraculous things with medical devices, and I've been involved in some of that. Yeah, I don't want to say a whole lot there, but I can tell you it's advanced our medical field a whole lot, and we can thank our government for that.
Your dog's barking. You think there's a visitor outside?
There well could be.
Would you tell me if you got a vibe like right now? Would you tell me?
Yeah, if I felt it, I would, but I don't necessarily feel it right now.
When you said you went like this, I meant to ask you that. Is that like an antenna? I'm not being cavalier with you, Chris. Right?
Yeah. I extend my arms often, and I think we'll be seeing some of this later this summer. But I feel it better. It's like they're drawn. It comes through me, through my arms and through my body.
Right.
Yeah.
Really quick before I let you go, and thank you. It's laid out there and everything else, and you're doing a lot of press and you're doing a lot of shows, and big shout out to Dave. I think he's amazing, and so Dave, thank you. But I wanted to go back to Lori Wagner for a second. Right. Lori sent me a video and of an orange orb, and she's standing next to you. And in the video, you can hear, as a matter of fact, when she sent me the video, Chris, I called her and I went, that's you, right? Because I hear her talking next to you. She goes, yeah, that's me. I said, holy crap. So anyway, help me understand what she is describing. She's got a very distinctive voice, everybody, and those that know her love her because she's got this voice, and she's listening now, laughing, wanting us to stop talking about her. But anyway, she goes, it's coming down. It's coming down. Holy crap. It's getting closer. Oh my God. It's here. Right. Yeah. And in that video, what actually happened? It's kind of hard to tell depth of field, but listening to her describe it, it seems to me and she said it came out over the trees, right? It was up high, and then came up, approached the yard, and then literally came down to you guys. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. In fact, that was the last time she was here. It was during my daughter's wedding. She flew out for Emily's wedding, and Emily and Jack, and she didn't fly back till Monday. The wedding was on Saturday night, so it was Sunday night. And a good friend of mine, Foxy, his name is Foxy. He's in the very first chapter of the book. You hear the word Jason. This is Foxy, his son. Somebody I'm really attached to. But anyhow, Foxy was here, and he was staying one extra night, Sunday night. And it was cloudy. It was thundering and lightning. It was a nasty night, and they were really wanting to go out and sky watch. So I left them in the house talking to Yvonne, and I went outside to my pier, and I looked up at the sky, and there was lightning flashing. And I said, these people come from a long way. I'm just talking to heaven like this, and I know they hear me. I know they do. They always do. It's like I know they're there. And I said, I want them to experience something special. And it spoke to me immediately, and it said, tell them not to be afraid, that we're going to come close. So I walked in the house. They thinking the night was over. I said, Lori, Foxy, y'all promise me you don't be afraid, but it's going to come close tonight, ground level. And sure enough, we go out to the end of my house, and here it starts coming. And it come from a long ways away. One orb appeared on the other side of the pond and come all the way across the pond, about a foot off the water, come up on the bank, come right up to us. They came from a long ways, a bunch of them. There were, I don't know how many she said, but if I remember right, there was close to a dozen orbs. Right. Approached us that night, and some came within 5-10 feet from us and just vanished right in front of us.
Yeah, that's what she said. That's what she said. Yeah. And to hear her describe it, in the play-by-play, because she was taken by surprise.
Yeah.
Okay. It was up high, and it's coming, and she's like, it's coming down. It's coming down. Here it is. It's orange. It's getting. Oh my! It's getting close. Whoa! Right? And the video that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was blown away watching the video, and then that's when I realized it was Lori, and I called her immediately. She goes, "Yeah, that's me in the video." Yeah. And or she called me. I'm sorry, but wow. Something's going on out there, my man, and just keep it up. I can't wait to get out there. I want to experience this for myself too as well. But congratulations on the book. The book is amazing. You're going to be very, very busy over the next couple of weeks. But thank you for taking the time to hang out tonight. And I expect that gasser engine to arrive in the mail here soon. Okay,
I will send it to you, I promise. And you have a standing invitation here anytime.
Man, Chris, love you, brother. Thank you. The book is amazing. Everybody, the links are below. We've got them on social media and, of course, over on our website as well. Chris Bledsoe, thank you, man. The community thanks you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm honored.
Chris Bledsoe. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, my friend. What a great night. What a great conversation. And listen, Chris has been doing a lot of press, a lot of media, and for him to take the time to come on with us live tonight is very special to me and for all of us. I do want to thank Dave for putting all of this together. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris. And then, again, the links are below. And you can do all of that. I want to remind everybody what is going on, and that is tomorrow night here on Fade to Black. Dr. Christopher Macklin is with us. And tomorrow night we are going to be talking about off-planet AI. That's right. Tomorrow night, off-planet AI. Chris, you stay right there. I'll say goodnight after the show. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Oh, Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, spaceboymusic.com. Webmasters, Drew the Geek. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Dr. Christopher Macklin, I want everybody to be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.